let me kick it off for our Energy Queensland team. So we have our network services and our sourcing team members are joining us today, and we have been working with QBCC to do this collaboration piece based on the feedback that we have solicited from the teams around gathering a bit more understanding or knowledge in the QBCC space around the acts and legislation and just what we need to know to be able to govern and manage our procurement activities a little bit better. So Byron, Chris and the team have pull together a presentation today based on those questions that we have asked. This is a bit of a test group too. Let me just say the anticipation is to, out of today's session, understand what worked well and what we might need to dig a little bit deeper on to get a better understanding of different aspects of whether it be licensing or that retention or project trust account side of the Queensland building construction industry. So yeah, without further ado, I won't take up too much time. Chris, I'll hand over to you if you can start the presentation, please.
Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Building Smarter webinar, Compliance in Queensland through Energy Solutions. My name is Chris Jockers, and I'm Program Coordinator for Industry Skills here at the QBCC. We're very excited to have you along today to share some knowledge across the construction industry that we work in. Now, before we begin, we'll also be presenting some subject matter experts today throughout this webinar across licensing, trust accounts, MFR, and the like. Okay, today I'm presenting to you from Yuggera Lands here in Brisbane. But before we begin, here at the QBC, I would like to acknowledge the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander traditional custodians of country throughout Australia and recognise the continuing connection to lands, water, and communities. We pay our respects to Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures and to the elders past and present. Okay, so if you're new to Queensland or haven't had much to do with us here at the Queensland Building Construction Commission, QBCC, we are the regulator for the building and construction industry in Queensland, and we ensure safety, quality, and compliance. Okay, so you'll see now the topics that we'll be covering today. They're in no apparent order. However, if you take a look at some of the information here, there will be some myth busting as well, polls that you can interact in, which will be quite basic, but they'll provide you some good information as long as with some areas of licensing, home warranty insurance, and the Trust Accounts BIFOLA Act in particular. So who is the QBCC? Well, we are the Queensland Building Construction Commission, and we're the regulatory authority for the building construction industry in Queensland. We were established under the Queensland Building Construction Commission Act of 1991, previously known as the BSA. Now the QBCC, I think it was around 2011 that changed. The QBCC's primary role is to ensure the integrity and sustainability of the building industry here in Queensland. So our primary purposes are to reduce risk in the building construction industry, offer protection from harm, and encourage innovative industry responses to current and emerging challenges through ensuring proper building standards are followed and adhered to. Along with licensing, we assess and issue licenses to builders, trade contractors, plumbers and drainers, certifiers, and pool inspectors, just to name a few, and there's over 80 licenses that we administer. The compliance and enforcement, we also monitor and enforce compliance with building standards, the QBCC Act and the regulations. We also look at dispute resolution, which comes through homeowners or through contractors, and we provide a service to resolve disputes between homeowners and builders or contractors. We administer insurance, the QBCC insurance scheme, administering the Queensland Home Warranty Insurance Scheme, which offers protection to homeowners for defective or incomplete building work. We provide education and support, offering resources and support to industry professionals and consumers to promote the best practices and improve industry standards. So we have a definition of building work, which is a little bit long, but we'll get through it pretty quickly. It's the only definition that we've got here, so we're not going to bore you too much with legislation today. but it's quite an important one because this defines what is building work in Queensland. And so I'll read this out from the Act. Building work means the erection, construction of a building or the renovation, alteration, extension, improvement or repair of a building, or provision of lighting, heating, ventilation, air conditioning, water supply, sewerage or drainage in connection with a building, or any site work including the construction of retaining structures related to of kind of referred to above, the preparation of plans or specifications for the performance of building work, or contract administration carried out by a person in relation to the construction of a building designed by a person, or fire protection work, or mechanical services work, or carrying out site testing and classification in preparation for the erection or construction of a building on site, or carrying out completed building inspection, we're nearly there, or the inspection or investigation of a building and provision of advice or report for the following: termite management systems for the building, termite infestation of the building, but does not include work of any kind excluded by regulation from the ambient of this definition. So it's very thorough, very long. There is a QR code which you'll see on the screen. Will take you straight to this definition if you should need it in the future. And these QR codes and links will be provided in handouts at the end, as Byron said, of this webinar.
Good morning, everyone. So I'm Mariama, I'm from the licensing department, and what I will be talking to you about today is when you need a license. So if you work in the building industry in Queensland, chances are you need a license. However, there are some instances where you do not need to hold a license. In Queensland, individuals and companies must hold a QBCC license to carry out building work that is valued at $3,300. Where it involves hydraulic services design, then that value changes to $1,100. And for the following license classes, regardless of the value, a license is required: drainage, plumbing and drainage, gas fitting, termite management, chemical, fire protection, completed residential building inspection, building design, low-rise, medium and open, site classification and mechanical service. So this means even if the job is a dollar value, you still need a license for this. The QBCC offers 80 licenses for the building and construction industry. The license you apply for depends on your role, the work you do, and if you meet the eligibility requirements. Eligibility varies by license and may include technical qualification, experience, business or managerial qualification, financial criteria, fit and proper requirements. The QBCC is responsible for assessing license applications, issuing licenses, and ensuring that the licensee continues to meet the required standards. So the license type explained. We offer 4 types of license to cover different roles and responsibilities in the building industry. You can choose the license type that suits how you intend to work. This table provides a quick overview of how a licensee may operate in the industry when holding each type of license. Now let's start with our contractor license type. The contractor type license allows the individual or company to enter into contracts directly with the property owner, builder, principal, contractor, or developer. Contractor licensee must demonstrate they have the financial capacity and business training to run a sustainable business. They must also demonstrate they have the technical skills and experience to undertake the scope of building work for the license class they hold. Nominee supervisor. A nominee supervisor license is issued to an appropriately qualified director, secretary, or employee of a company who is nominated to oversee the scope of building work the company is contracted to undertake. They must ensure the work being undertaken by a company meets the relevant standards and codes. The person holding the nominee supervisor license must meet the relevant experience, technical skills and managerial qualification for the same license class as the company contractor type license. A nominee supervisor cannot enter into contracts directly with the public, builder or principal contractor. This is done through the company entity holding the company contractor license type. Now we move on to the site supervisor. A site supervisor license is issued to a person employed by a licensed contractor to supervise building work of equivalent scope to the contractor license class. A site supervisor is only required to have a trade qualification to obtain this license. And lastly, the occupational. The occupational licenses are issued to the industry practitioners who perform the following work as an employee of a QBCC contractor licensed for the following scopes of work: the fire protection, mechanical services, plumbing, drainage, gas fitting, and termite management. Now I am going to hand you over to Lessa, who will go through different scenarios of when a license is required for commercial building work.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Lessa, and let's get into these scenarios. In our first scenario, we have a client who subcontracted to an unlicensed head contractor or developer. The developer has then subcontracted to a builder to coordinate all building work, and the builder then subcontracted different parts of the building work to different trade contractors. So let's look firstly at the developer. An unlicensed individual or company, in this case the developer, may enter into a principal contract to carry out building work, provided the work is not residential construction work or domestic building work. However, the unlicensed developer is not allowed to personally carry out or provide building work services for the work. An individual or company who subcontracts to carry out building work for the developer must hold a contractor's license of the relevant class for the work that they have been subcontracted to carry out. So this brings us to the builder. In order for this scenario to be compliant, the builder must hold an appropriate QBCC license, which covers the contracted scope of work. And as a subcontractor for a licensed builder, which in this scenario we have our carpenter and painter, both must also hold an appropriate contractor license for the subcontracted building work they undertake for the licensed builder. This is supported by the QBCC Act Schedule 1A, exemptions from requirement to hold a contractor's license, and in Section 8 titled Head Contracts to Carry Out Building Work. But what happens to our scenario if the builder is not in the picture? Then we get a non-compliant scenario. In this scenario, the developer commits an offence if they are not licensed because they are coordinating multiple trades for building work over the value of $3,300. The legislation does not allow an unlicensed person to do anything other than enter the contract and contract the work to an appropriately licensed person. So let's take a closer look at our trade contractors. Who can subcontract to a licensed trade contractor? In most cases, you don't need a license if you work as a subcontractor for a licensed trade contractor. Let's say I hold a carpentry license and I am going to do a kitchen and bathroom renovation. Under the carpentry license scope of work, I can construct and erect timber and steel wall framing and roof structures, construct and erect non-load bearing internal partition walls, install windows and doors, including framing, erect ceiling and subfloor framing, install timber and sheet flooring, install exterior cladding, fascias and soffits, metal roofing, construct timber stairs, fix internal linings, install door and window locks and furniture, restore and renovate doors and windows and frames, install fitments, concreting to simple form, erect and strip formwork, and lastly, I can do incidental work of another license class. So I need to do some tiling and waterproofing for my kitchen bathroom renovation, but these are not covered in my scope of work. The incidental work of another class is within the scope of work of carpentry. So what is incidental work? There are a number of contractor license classes that allow the holder to carry out incidental work in their scope of work. For these license classes, the holder may carry out building work that is within the scope of work of another class of contractor license if both of the following apply. The building work is incidental to the building work being carried out under their license incidental work, and the incidental work is valued at $3,300 or less. This is supported by the QBCC Regulations 2018, Part 2.7, titled Scope of Work for a License, Incidental Work of Another Class. Note, it is important to remember the value for both of the tiler. The value for both the tiler and waterproofing scope of work must be $3,300 or less. As a carpenter doing a kitchen and bathroom renovation, there may be even an occasion where I might need a plumber. Now, this is important to remember. If the incidental work valued at $3,300 or less is building work that requires an occupational license, so we have our plumbing work, it must be carried out by a licensed contractor who holds the occupational license. But if I need to do tiling work and waterproofing and also engage a plumber, the total value of all three need to be $3,300 or less for me as a carpenter to complete the project. If the incidental work exceeds $3,300, then I need a builder's license.
Thank you, Miriama and Lessa. Fantastic. Clear as mud, probably, to some of you, because I know when I first started, a lot of this was very confusing. However, that's why we have the QR codes and the links we'll send out at the end of this webinar, so you can peruse this at your leisure if you require it. It's a QBCC website. Underwent a new design, was launched in 2023 and is now easier to use and navigate what you're looking for. So this is the homepage of the QBCC website, minus the QR code, but it's there for your convenience. So the QBCC website has a search function and an easy to use I want to drop down box to quick search topics, as you'll see on the top right hand side. There's interactive tools to find what information you require, such as the licensing information tool that we spoke about earlier, and find a local contractor tool, which we'll cover. So this interactive tool, again, is very similar to the licensing, to the license search information tool. But to find a local contractor, you can select this drop-down box for whatever type of person you're looking for, trade contractor or builder, for example, or a plumber. You can also then search what radius you wish to find this trade contractor or builder in, and then you can perform your search and select from a list of QBCC registered builders, plumbers, contractors, for example. It's a very interactive tool which will give you up-to-date information on licensees. It may make your job a little bit easier if you were searching if someone is licensed or working within this area. So now we'll move on to Home Warranty Insurance Scheme offered by the QBCC. So the Home Warranty Insurance Scheme. This is a mandatory insurance offered by the QBCC. It's required for most residential building work valued over $3,300, including new homes, renovations, and extensions. It does not cover commercial work. Offers protection of incomplete work, defective work, and issues like subsidence or settlement. The maximum coverage is up to $200,000 per claim, with optional additional coverage available. How does it work? Premium payment. So the contractor pays the insurance premium, which is included in the contract price. So between a contractor and a homeowner, or a builder and a homeowner, they enter into a contract. The contract price is settled. The contractor then has 10 business days to pay the Home Warranty Insurance Scheme the amount covered for the building work. If a homeowner is to make a claim, they can claim for non-completion, defects, or damage caused by events like fire or storm during the building process. Our biggest claim generally is for non-completion and defects. So the benefits of the QBCC Home Warranty Insurance Scheme are a peace of mind and ensures that homeowners are financially protected if something goes wrong with their building project. It's transferable It's not transferable, sorry, and the insurance remains for the property even if it's sold from 6 years and 6 months from the day building contractors entered into. It's good to have a basic understanding of what the QBCC insurance is. And remember, it's only applied for domestic building works and not commercial work. Here you'll see a QR code, again, will be sent out later for the Home Warranty Insurance Scheme Product Disclosure Guide. This is a comprehensive guide which will give you further information if you require it for the Home Warranty Insurance Scheme. So the Queensland Home Warranty Insurance Scheme Product Disclosure is a summary of applicable cover for contracts signed on or after 28th of October 2016. And the full terms of covered are provided under the QBCC Act 1991 Part 5 and the QBCC Commission Regulation Act 2018 Schedule 6. So now we're going to move on to another subject, the final subject for today. And this is MFR regulations and an overview on trust accounts and BIFOLA, and this will be read by Marina Anthony, our Manager of Trust Accounts here at the QBCC.
So good morning, everyone. And thank you, Chris, for all of that information regarding home warranty insurance and continued on also from the girls regarding the licensing. So I'm going to touch very quickly on the MFR regulations to start with. So a holder of a contractor's license is required to lodge annual financial information, even if they didn't earn any revenue during the financial year as per the MFR regulations. So the QBCC sets the maximum revenue amount based on the net tangible assets held, and a licensee's approved net tangible asset amount cannot decrease by more than 20 or 30%, depending on the license category. So let's looking at license categories. License categories range from a self-certified 1 or SE1, commonly known, or a self-certified 2, SE2, and the categories range from 1 to 7. These can be found on the website and hopefully we'll get a handout to you regarding about all of that. So separately to the MFR and under a different act, trust accounts. And trust accounts fall under the Building Industry Fairness Security of Payment Act, known as commonly as the BIF Act. Many of you are familiar with statutory trusts from engaging your accountant or your lawyer. And this trust framework is similar to that. However, it is quite different in many ways. The trust framework has two types of trust accounts. The first is the project trust account. The project trust account receives and holds the progress payments from the principal, being the project owner. It is used to pay first-tier subcontractors and the head contractor on the project. The head contractor is required to assess the contract and, where eligible, open a project trust account, and each eligible contract must have a separate project trust account. The second type of trust account is the retention trust account. The retention trust account holds and protects eligible cash retention amounts withheld from payment. Unlike project trust accounts, retention trust accounts are currently held by trustees and principals and developers who withhold cash retentions from payments, but for a later phase. And the legislation will roll out further to subcontractors and sub-subcontractors in a later phase. It is important to note that retention trust accounts are only applicable where there is a project trust project. So if the project is required a project trust account, anyone who holds with cash retentions on that project will eventually, at the moment only trustees and developers, will be required to open a retention trust account. While the project trust account is required for each eligible contract or project, a person withholding cash retention only needs one retention trust account. This one retention trust account can hold all the cash retentions for eligible projects only, not for any other project that doesn't fit into the framework. So it's important to know also that all accounts must be opened with an approved financial institution. And on our website, there are 6 approved financial institutions. So how do these project trust accounts work, or retention trust account work? Similarly, a head contractor commonly opens multiple projects at various stages. So let's look at the first level. The owner and developer will enter into a contract with the head contractor, and then all the money from that principal or developer will flow through the project trust account to then being made payments through to the subcontractor and to the head contractor themselves. So this quarantines the money so that the subcontractor is given some preference to the payments. Also, as you see on the right-hand side, there is money that the head contractor can take, but also any cash retentions are then transferred to the retention trust account. So the money is held in the retention trust account until a trigger of release, which is usually on a practical completion date, or also on the end of the defects liability period. So payments from the principal must not go to the head contractor's business account as normally would have occurred previously. So it must go through, and is actually an offence for the head contractor not to pass it to deposit it into the project trust account. Under the framework, subcontractors are not to be paid by the head contractor directly from the normal business account. Only the head contractor as a beneficiary can receive eligible payments from the project trust account into their normal business account. So these trust accounts have criteria for them to be eligible contracts. So all the criteria must be satisfied for them to be a project trust project, to require a project trust account. Sorry for all the word project. However, let's first of all look at the contracting party. All of the following criteria must be satisfied. If the contracting party is the state government, health and hospital service, local government, a statutory authority, a government-owned corporation, or a private sector entity, they may need a project trust account. However, considering the other criteria, the next consideration is the price. At this point in time, contracts with state government and hospital and health services require a project trust account if they are over $1 million. If the contracts are with local government, statutory authorities, government-owned corporations or private sector, currently project trust accounts are required for contracts over $10 million. The next criteria that we look at is more than 50% of the contract for project trust work. Project trust work is differently defined to building work as per the QBCC Act. The BIF Act itself has its own definition of project trust work. Project trust work, it includes the construction, renovation, or alteration of a building on any site, and work performed by architects, engineers, and licensed surveyors also fall within the professional work of the contract. So generally speaking, project trust work is any building or construction work. Lastly, the project trust account applies where subcontractors are engaged or will be engaged. So previously to BIFOLA 2024, there was prefabrication and associated work with prefabrication, where prefabbed elements were supplied and installed to the project the prefabrication element in itself was applicable to the framework. This has now been changed. The supply of prefabrication is no longer part of the framework. However, if that prefabrication work is supplied and installed by the same contractor, it will fall into the framework. Also, there's been a change in definition of who is a subcontractor, and that is a person who is licensed or requires to have a license, and it's consistent with the definition of project trust work. There is some exemptions to this framework, and the exemptions apply to small-scaled residential construction work, less than 3 units, which means a home will never be applicable to this framework, nor will a duplex. However, if there's 3 living units together, yes, it will apply. Contracts for maintenance work are exempt from this framework, and so are contracts for professional design, advisory, and contract administration work. So let's move on to retention trust accounts. Firstly, a retention trust account only applies if you are holding cash retentions. It does not apply if there is another type of retention, such as bank guarantee or an insurance bond. Also, what still applies under this section of the Act is under the QBCC Act. There, under Section 67, there is a limit of 5% on retentions to be held on a total building contract price, and a retention amount withheld cannot be more than 10% on any relevant amount that is withheld on progress payments. Secondly, does the head contractor require a project trust? The requirement for the retention accounts only operates in conjunction with project trust accounts if you're a head contractor, and if it's a project trust project, if you are the principal or developer. And as mentioned earlier, this will extend later to other areas. And lastly, who is holding the retention trust account, retention cash money? At the moment, as I said, it's the principal and the head contractor. From October 2025, if a subcontractor is holding the retentions, they too will need to have a retention trust account, and I'll show you that soon in the slides. Part of the BIF amendments for retention trust accounts, previously they required an independent account review. That is no longer required at this moment. That requirement has been paused. And previously, mandatory retention trust training was required. That too has been removed from the legislation. So let's look at the phase out. As mentioned earlier, on October 2025, subcontractors and subcontractors, if they are holding cash retentions for a project trust project, they too will need to open a retention trust account to safeguard those cash retentions. So you can scan the QR code, and I'm going to quickly just go through the amendments of BIFOLA 24, additionally to the ones that I've already mentioned. So recap on the ones I've already mentioned. There's a new approach as to who is a subcontractor beneficiary, and that is a person who is doing project trust work. And it's usually a person that is licensed or working on site. There's also a pause on the independent account review reports, so that is no longer required for anyone who has a retention trust, and they do not have to engage an auditor to audit that trust account. There's also a removal of the mandatory trust training for the retention trustees. In addition to this, there was also clarification on how to consider trust account balances and the beneficial interest for the purposes of the MFR reporting. There was clarification on the transitional provisions, that when there's a new phase into the framework, it will not apply retrospectively. And there's also simplifying of the accounting records needed for the trust accounts administration. Now I'll hand back to Chris
Okay, so thank you very much for listening today. We really appreciate your time. We hope that you have taken some quality information from this webinar. It was designed to help you in your everyday work and also to give you that benefit of the information at our website where you can use that, which may help you every day. Additionally, we're going to have a short Q&A now, and we do have some questions that have been submitted online, which I can read out. Okay, so the first question today we have is, can a homeowner use or claim off the home warranty insurance without going through their contractor? So yes, we always say to the homeowner, for example, you need to engage with your building contractor in the first instance by sending them an email or corresponding with them in writing, and give them at least 1 to 2 weeks to reply in regards to whether they have defects, to come back and rectify those defects prior to coming to the QBCC and lodging a claim under the QBCC home warranty insurance scheme. So we always recommend that they go to their contractor or builder first prior to coming to us in regards to a claim. And the second question, and if so, does it affect the builder's insurance premium? So no, it doesn't affect the builder's insurance premium under the QBCC Act. So every insurance premium that the contractor or builder raises, it is on a sliding scale table, and that does not change. So regardless if a builder has had claims against them, the premium amounts do not change. It's all dependent on the value of the building work on the scale. We also have one other question in regards to trust accounts. And I'm just looking for that question. I don't seem to have it. Okay, I have it here. If a principal, example, Energy Queensland, withholds retention as a form of security, does Energy Queensland need to open a retention trust account? And I will throw that across to Marina, who can answer that.
Thank you for your question. So it comes down to whether that project was a project trust project. So is there a trust account, a project trust account, somewhere along the line of that project? And if there is a project trust account and there's cash retentions withheld, yes, that it does need a retention trust account. So let's also be careful that the line also has to also maintain that the principal and the head contractor and the subcontractor, they're all in line with that project to be completed. So the project being one whole project, yes, if it's a project trust account project, it needs to have a retention trust account for cash retentions.
Okay, well, thank you all very much for attending today. I see that we had quite a few attendees, and we thank you very much. I'd like to also thank Belinda Crawford for reaching out to the QBCC to initiate this webinar, and also a big thank you to Byron for producing it, Lessa from licensing, Marina from trust accounts, and also Miriam for licensing for presenting today. So thank you very much for listening, and we wish you a great day, and take care of yourself. Thank you.
For more information about the QBCC, visit qbcc.qld.gov.au and follow us on social media.